Too often business owners today are focusing on the little things in business. They're ordering supplies, dealing with employees, and dealing with customers, when what we should be focusing on is the most important thing, cash flow. I've grown over 10 businesses from the ground up. In this podcast, you'll learn the ins and outs of building a business and how to build transferable value. And most importantly, you'll learn how to maximize cash. They call me Cashflow Mike, and this is the clear path to cash. Hey, it's Cashflow Mike, and welcome to the Clear Path to Cash podcast. And I'm super excited today because Brian Morgan is in the house. Now, I have the luxury of working with Brian every single day. He's the director of sales for Simplex Financials. But I don't want to talk to him about that, right? I talk to him about that quite a bit. And what I want to talk to him about is what he does in his free time, right? What he does in his free time is he manages an organization called TYFA, which is Texas Youth Football Association. If you know anything about football or you know anything about Texas, this is a big deal. So big, in fact, that they made a show, right? There's a Netflix show based on this organization. It's called Friday Night Tykes. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, Brian. So Brian is the, I think you're the president of this organization. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm the president and co-founder. The other founder is a gentleman by the name of Al Hollins.
Great. All right. So cool. So I want to dig into that today because not many people really get to go behind the scenes and what is Texas youth football, because, you've even put people into the NFL, from this organization. So it's really kind of cool, or NFL or college. I can't remember but you have kind of a history with this organization. But I want to talk about managing your staff, right? Managing the volunteers, the people that, that are organized all the way across the state. And we're going to get into that. So welcome to the show. And I tell you what, if you've never listened to the Clear Path to Cash before, make sure you're subscribing. You're getting notified when we have new episodes. We're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google. We're on them all. So take a look at that. And Brian, let's dig in. Kind of give us a background. How did this thing get started? I mean, how do you become a co-founder of Texas Youth Football?
Well, it's a long story, so I'll give you the abbreviated version of it. It started 25 years ago. The gentleman that I mentioned earlier, Al Hollins, we were a part of another league that was, not very well run. And, one of the things was he was always complaining about, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. And I told him, I said, look, let's stop complaining about things. If we can make things better, then let's try and do it. I mean, the only way we're going to make things better is if we throw our hats in the ring and prove, put our money where our mouth is, for lack of a better term. So, it started on a cocktail napkin sitting at a Denny's, as far as outlining, what the mission was, what we wanted to do, and how big, we thought that this particular endeavor would be. So from that point on, I was a young individual, a young man at that point in time, and I didn't have a family or anything. So I was kind of the legs of the beginning of TYFA. So I went to visit different cities and talk to different youth football organizations that were around. I mean, Texas is a big state. So I took about 6 months just driving around to Houston, to Dallas, to all the major cities, even to some of the smaller ones you never heard of, and just going to talk to them and saying, hey, look, this is our vision. This is our mission. And we think we can put together something that's going to be great along part of high school football to give our kids the flavor of playing Texas high school football at the small scale, but on the big scale. So they got the same flavor that they would get when they wouldn't get until they got to high school, but they get it at the younger level and help really build the game of football here, continue to build on the culture of football within Texas. Because, in football, Texas is it's ingrained in the culture. It's family. It's family and football, and not necessarily in that order. So that's always kind of been our mission statement, is to get out there and, build the grassroots and, provide a level of football that's going to be competitive and provide these kids with the experience to take it to the next level.
Yeah, that's super interesting, right? Because, when I was a kid, Galesburg, Illinois, we had the Junior Football League, right? JFL is what they called it. So the NFL, we were in JFL. And but we only competed. There was maybe 6-8 teams in the whole league, and we only competed in the city. So it was always against the folks I went to school with. But you're doing more than that, right? I mean, isn't there even a state playoff and championship? And kind of explain how vast this thing really is.
Right. Well, like I said, Texas, being that football is part of the culture, you also have to look at the the geographic area that Texas covers. Texas is its own country. So that has some inherent challenges that we have to manage. But, the thing that we were able to do was we were able to unite all these different individual organizations from around the state and put together a state playoff system that incorporates all of the major cities here in the state of Texas, as far as San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, and Austin. And then we even took it further. We expanded outside of that. So we have teams that are participating from the Rio Grande Valley. We have teams from as far west Texas as Midland, Odessa, and Abilene, even as far west Texas as El Paso. So we're the largest youth organization in the state of Texas with over 18,000 participants. And I say participants as far as kids and athletes. And then as far as 10,000 volunteers that are coaches and staff people for these respective organizations. So it's a huge endeavor, especially when you look at the geographic size of Texas. But we've done something that had never been done in the state of Texas before, which was to unite all the individual organizations, and provide a state playoff format that's on par with the high school playoff format here in Texas. So we'll start playing football in August, and we don't finish up until the second or third week in December. So it's 6 months worth of regular season, and then you have the playoffs and championships. So, and we've played some very fantastic championship games over the course of the last 25 years at some fantastic venues across the state of Texas. And we've played in the Alamo Dome. We've played at Texas A&M University of Texas. We've played at the Star in Frisco. And we want to do that in order to give our kids the experience of a lifetime. I had a kid tell me one time that, he got a chance to play in the Alamo Dome, and his older brother, who never played in TYFA, was jealous because he said, "Man, I played in the championship game, and it was on the back of somebody's high school." He goes, "My little brother got a chance to play in the Alamo Dome and in front of 3,000 people, and that's an experience that they're going to carry on for a lifetime."
Yeah. So this is a small business podcast, right? This is about small business, and I really look at what you're doing though as a business, right? That's really what you've done from an idea to growing an organization. You have to kind of look at it that way. I would assume. Is that right, or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, that's one of the ways that we really approach this, is that, it wasn't just an entity that we put together so kids can get out there and play football. Our initial thoughts from day one was we have to run this like a business. We have to manage this like a business, because it is. Because even though you're a nonprofit organization, you're still collecting money. You still have to bring in people to run different aspects of the business, whether it be from out there recruiting teams to join the league, marketing the league, and then of course the overall management of the league. So it's a business. I mean, it may not be on the scale of IBM or anything along those lines. I mean, I wish we had the money as IBM and them have, but we're just not there yet. But it is a business, and any way you slice it, it's a business because it's 24/7, 365. We have a saying between the senior board members who. People say, "Hey, you guys never seem to take any days off or anything like that." We say, "Well, TYFA never sleeps," because there's always, we're always looking for ways to improve it, make it bigger, make it better.
Yeah. All right. So you've got all these people. So how many people tell me the reporting structure, I guess is where I'm going. I mean, how much authority or control or coordination, what does it look like from your level all the way out through the state of Texas?
Okay. So basically what we have is, just like the normal structure you have in any business, you have a senior level management, and you have mid-level managers, and then you have, kind of those third tier managers that are out there. So the way we're structured is we have a senior executive board, and that I sit in myself, Al Hollins, and another gentleman named Chris Coleman. We are the senior executive board of TYFA. So we make all of the day-to-day operational decisions and things of that nature. But underneath us, we have two separate boards, which is the football executive board and then the cheer executive board, because kind of left that out. It does say Texas Youth Football Association, but we also have a huge cheer portion of this organization, which comprises that 18,000 athletes. So being that you have two kind of separate entities in there, we have two different boards. So we have the football executive board, which manages the football side of the house, and then the cheer executive board, which manages the cheer side of the house. And then underneath those, in each respective city, we have what we call chapter directors, because we refer to this individual cities as chapters. So you have the San Antonio chapter, the Austin chapter, so on and so forth. So you have we have chapter directors and their assistants within those respective chapters in order to help manage and be the boots on the ground within those respective areas. But everything reports back up to the senior executive board. Senior executive board makes the major executive decisions for the organization. The football and cheer board make the football and cheer decisions for the league itself.
Got it. All right. So you guys were doing remote before that was cool.
Yeah, we were actually.
But think about that. What have been some of the challenges of managing, and I'm going to assume mostly volunteer organization. What are some of the challenges there, or what's made it easier? What are some great advice you give other people trying to spread their organization out, outside of the central command of one building?
Right. Well, I mean, being that we're headquartered out of San Antonio, the problem has always been communication. Being able to talk with everyone and get everyone on the same page. So, having those clear lines of communication to make sure the message is coming down from the top is filtering or trickling down to all the respective areas, and that information is getting disseminated out to the individual organization. So that's always been a challenge, because we all played that game when we were a kid, where you said a message to the kid to your left and it went around the room, and by the time it got back to you, that message had been changed 5 different times, added to.
That's right. Telephone.
Sometimes yeah, we've experienced that. But if I was going to give the advice to anybody, who has this type of challenge when you're trying to communicate with employees that are kind of spread out across an area, it's going to be embrace technology. I would say that's the one major thing that has probably set us apart from any other association that's out there, because we embrace technology. We actively seek out things that are going to make our jobs easier, to make communication easier. And like you said, before Zoom was popular and became part of the American vernacular, we were already doing video conferencing, and it wasn't as good, 5 years ago as it is now. But
right.
We made it work. It might have been a telephone call with some sort of sketchy video attached to it, but we tried to make it the best. But if you're a small business owner, you don't be afraid of things that can help your business run more effectively and streamline some of your efficiency. So that's the way we always approach it. I'm fortunate to have a guy on our staff, Chris Coleman, he's our techno guru guy. So he's always out there looking for things that are going to make communication better, to make the dissemination of information better, or just to provide tools to our organizations to help register their kids, because that's another huge endeavor. Because one of our biggest challenges is that we want to keep everything on legitimate. So we want to make sure every kid is certified in our league. And over the course of the last 8 years, we've invested nearly $800,000 in a league-wide certification system, in which is where we verify each kid's age to make sure they're playing in the appropriate age group, and everything's always on the up and up. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, good. Hey, in case you're wondering, you are listening to The Clear Path to Cash, and I'm with Brian Morgan today. And if you haven't got the chance to listen to this or any new episodes that are coming out, go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts, go to YouTube, subscribe, get notified. And I'm going to spend some time now talking about how do you go from that idea to having a Netflix show based on you, right? Because that's a huge thing. I mean, hey, come on, I can't avoid the elephant in the room. I mean, I've got everybody that knows this and maybe sees Friday Night Tykes on Netflix. I want to encourage them to go watch it and see Brian and his staff in action. So walk us through that. How'd that happen? We were approached by an independent film company 6 years ago. And they came to us with an idea, and they say, hey, look, we've been following the Texas Youth Football Association. We've been following the culture of football across the state of Texas and why people are so fanatical about it. And they came to us and they said, well, we see that your organization encompasses a large area of Texas. And, we feel like, this is where it starts. So how does that fanaticism start at such a young age and grow to what it is on Friday nights? I mean, if you're not familiar with Texas football, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but Texas football, towns shut down on Friday nights. You have high school football games that have more attendance than some big college games. And you might have 30,000 people at a high school event, game here in Texas. I mean, look at some of the cathedrals that we built to football here in Texas. That's right.
High school stadiums that hold 60,000 people. But, that's where the idea came from, is that these independent filmmakers came to us and they said, why is it so fanatical? Why is it, and how does it start? So they came to us with an idea. We want to follow your league and show America how kids come out of the womb in Texas and have a football placed in their hand. And how that translates to their life and how football is so ingrained in these kids' lives, whether it be from grandpa to dad and now to their sons who's out there playing. So they pitched us on this idea, and, we thought, well, it's to us, it's commonplace, hey, we grew up with this. But to everyone else, we thought, well, you know what, it would be interesting for people to see exactly how this is done. So they started filming us before it became Friday Night Tykes. This individual filmmaker filmed us for a year. And he took the idea and shopped it around to different networks. And NBC gravitated to it. They were launching a brand new TV station called Esquire. And they wanted our show to be kind of the flagship show of that network that was launching. So they came up with the term Friday Night Tykes. And from there, they spent the next 3 or 4 years, they were filming us. And they started with one particular age group and followed that team up until basically when they age out, because you start in TYFA at about age 4 playing flag. And then you go on to tackle football at age 7. And then you age out of TYFA at roughly age 12 or 13. So they followed a group of kids through there. And they also wanted to know the ins and outs of TYFA, how we did things, especially since the majority of us are volunteers and we have regular jobs. And that was kind of the thing that they wanted from me, is they're like, how do you do this? When do you sleep? You have 2 full-time jobs and one that you're not even getting paid for. And I said, it's because it's for the love of the game. Someone took the time to start a league when I was a kid and I had the opportunity to do this. I just took their idea and we just reshaped it, made it better. And we just want to continue it on for generations to come. But so yeah, it was a good experience to do the show. I mean, people ask me all the time whenever they recognize me or they say, hey, I've seen the show. How was it to do the show? And I'll tell them, you know what? It was great while it lasted, but I probably wouldn't do it again, because it's people, it's the reality TV and all the things mixed in, and they want to monopolize your time and be at your house for different things and follow you around and drive in your car with you. And it was really kind of crazy. But I will say this, though. I mean, I always say I'm good, bad, and indifferent to the show, because there were bad portions of the show, because we all know how television sensationalizes things and they edit things to make controversy and things of that nature, because they want eyeballs to watch. So I would say that was probably the bad thing about it, is that sometimes they did a little creative editing and made things look worse than they were. Especially if you were there with firsthand knowledge, and go, well, didn't really happen that way. But okay, it is what it is. But the good portion of it is.
Did you get some bad feedback then?
Oh yeah. When the show first aired, I mean, the very first episode, I mean, we had anybody who was outside the state of Texas thought we were the worst thing ever, because the way the coaches were interacted with the kids, certain things that they said to the kids, us practicing out in 100-degree weather. But if you're not from Texas, outside of Texas, that was one of the main questions I would field on different panels. They would say, why do you have those kids out there in 100-degree weather? And I said, I'm from South Texas. And we play football in Texas. We wake up, it's 100 degrees outside. We go to bed, it's 100 degrees outside. So what can we do? These kids have to adapt and be able to play in the environment that they are. And then, of course, it's the people who didn't feel like, the coaches are too hard on the kids. It's supposed to be fun. Well, I've always told people, if the coaches were doing something wrong, we would take action against it. We have rules against certain things. But also, it's a parent's choice where they put their kids at and what type of environment they want their kids to be a part of. We expect all our coaches to be, professional and treat the kids as if they're their own. So if they yell at a kid to get them motivated, it's just like managing people. When you have a football team, you can't coach everybody the same way. Some people need a pat on the head and others need a kick in the butt. So that wasn't well received from a lot of people. So we got a lot of negative feedback, but then we got a lot of positive feedback who were on the other side of it. People said, that's what my kid needs. This league we play up here in Ohio, they're not showing our kids how to win. They're not telling them it's, hey, you can win and you can lose, but you have to play hard. You have to work hard to be successful. I think over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, sports has changed where, everyone gets a trophy and things of that nature. Everybody wants everything to be on the same plane. They forgot how to compete. And I've always said that, sports teaches a valuable lesson. It teaches kids how to be competitive. And lately, over the course of the last couple of years, you've seen everything, every little Johnny's got to get a trophy. Don't worry about keeping score and everything along those lines. And I call it the wussification of America. But kids need to learn how to compete because they're going to compete in the classroom and eventually they're going to compete in the job market. So why not teach them how to be competitive and deal with adversity at a young age?
Yeah. Hey, Brian, super, super interesting, man. I love this conversation. Let me ask you this. I always kind of end the show with the same question of everybody, and I want you to connect, again, TYFA to business. And the question I'm going to ask you is, if your best friend was trying to start a business right now, what advice would you give them, based on your experience?
Based on my experience, if I had a friend who was starting a small business, first thing I would tell them is you have to build a good team. You have to build a team around you of like-minded people, but not yes men. You have to build, and when I say like-minded, they have to have the same direction, the same goal. We're all working towards the same goal. And they have to know what their roles are. So once you've assembled that team, you have to assign them the roles of what they're going to do and say, look, this is what you're strong at, and this is what we need you to focus on. And and then the other thing I would say is have good communication with your team.
Sure.
And it's not meeting with them once a week or once a quarter, or whatever the case may be. In our type of situation where we're not together every day in the office, we have to schedule regular meetings, whether that be we actually have a meeting once a week, every week to discuss things that may be happening. Even if there's nothing going on, we still get a chance to get on and just, hey, what's going on in your respective region, what's going on in your chapter, so on and so forth. But good communication, having productive meetings, don't just meet just for meeting's sake, but just meet to have some type of purpose and goal within that meeting. But if I was to advise my best friend, I would tell him, hey, build a good team, work with people that are like-minded with you, and be cautious of the money that you have in the organization. Don't spend money on frivolous stuff. Use the money to build the organization back. People tell me this all the time. They say, hey, Brian, you do all this work. You don't draw a salary or anything like that from there. And I say, because I want all the money that comes in there to be reinvested into the growth of TYFA. Only way we're going to make it better and continue to provide great services is to reinvest in the business. So I would tell small business owners, reinvest in your business. We talk about the end in mind, whether that end in mind is to, retire on a beach somewhere or to pass it on to someone else. But either way, you're going to do those two things. You have to build it up to where it's going to be attractive enough for someone to want to buy it, or you're going to build it up to where it is financially healthy to pass it on to someone else and you don't leave them any problems.
Hey, thank you very much. Great advice. I've heard that somewhere before too. So, but yeah, great advice. Hey, Brian Morgan, everyone. Brian Morgan, he is really one of the big guns and co-founders of TYFA. So if you've ever been interested in Texas football, this is the guy that knows it, right? This is where it all starts. So you've been listening to The Clear Path to Cash. And again, if you haven't seen us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, go check it out, go subscribe. And finally, don't be a dumb business owner.